Okay, at 6:30, we'll call the Sawyer County Board of Supervisors, January 18th, 2024 meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Dale Schlueter, Kay Wilson, Tweed Schuman,
Here.
Stacy Hessel,
Here.
Jason Weaver,
Here.
Mark Helwig, Thomas Duffy, Marshall Savitsky, Brian Bizinet, Chris Rusk,
Here.
John Righeimer, Ron Kinsley, Ron Buckholz,
Here.
Ed Peters. You have a quorum.
Wow, let the record indicate we have a full board. Thank you all. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, certification of compliance with open meetings law, Madam Clerk.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5, meeting agenda has been presented. Number 6, public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment or online, please? Madam Clerk, you have any slips turned in? Anybody online, Mike? All right. Thank you. Okay, number 7, consider approval of our meeting minutes from our previous meeting, 12/21/2023. Mr. Duffy.
So move.
Okay, motion by Mr. Duffy,
Second.
second by Mr. Savitsky to approve our meeting minutes of 12/21/23 as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Kudos to you, Madam Clerk. All right, number 8, appointments and recognition. Mr. Alvarado, you can take 1 and 2, sir.
Yes, number 1 is an appointment to the Northern Waters Library Service. There's a position that, a citizen position that we appoint that is up for reappointment. Diane DeLong currently was serving in that position and would be interested in continuing with that reappointment. So the recommendation is to reappoint Diane DeLong to the Northern Waters Library Service.
Mr. Kinsley. Thank you. Mr.
Okay.
Helwig. Okay. Motion by Mr. Kinsley, second by Mr. Helwig to approve the reappointment of Diane DeLong to the Northern Waters Library Service. How many years is that for, Andy?
3 years.
3-year term? 3-year term. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, letter 2, Sawyer County Housing Authority Board of Commissioners.
Yes, Angie Rude was a appointee to the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Her term expires in July of 25, but she has resigned from the board effective December 31st. There have asked and recommended Mike Stamp to be appointed to fulfill that term. Angie had a background in banking, which was she was able to provide valuable input. Mike Stamp is a local resident and officer at Shell Lake State Bank, and I know he's also involved in some of our housing efforts. I think he'd make a great appointment to fill that position and is recommended to fill out that term through July of 25.
Okay, Mr. Schlueter. Motion by Mr. Schlueter, Second by Mr. Buckholz. Approving Mike Stamp as our Sawyer County Housing Authority Board of Commissioners through 2025, correct?
July of 25.
July of 25. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 3. Madam Clerk, we had a vacancy in District 10, correct? And we sent out letters of interest. We had an application, and he is here today. So, Mr. Van Anten, would you please step forward, sir, for us? Thank you, sir. I'm going to make you state your name and address, please.
Chuck Van Etten, Boylan Road, Stone Lake, Wisconsin.
All right, so then at this time, I would entertain a motion that we approve Mr. Chuck Van Etten to the Sawyer County Board, fulfilling District 10's remaining, till April 2nd? Till the election in 2024. And Mr. Etten would also sit on the Health and Human Services, Zoning, and SEP committees as per our previous District 10. I got a motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Savitsky for Mr. Van Etten. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Van Etten, Your Honor, if you're in, there he is. Could you swear this nice gentleman in?
Yeah. Repeat after me. I, Chuck Van Etten,
I, Chuck Van Etten,
having been appointed to the office
having been appointed to the office
of County Board Supervisor, District 10,
of County Board Supervisor, District 10,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution
and will faithfully and impartially
will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duty of said office
to the best of my ability.
to my best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate that. Welcome, Mr. Van Etten. Okay, moving on then to number 5, recognition of retiring canine Oscar. Is that Sheriff?
It is with honor to recognize our retiring canine, Oscar. To have a successful canine, you need to have a good handler. I want to commend Dennis Nelson. Deputy Nelson has been an outstanding handler as well. He wants to share a few things regarding Oscar and his performance over the last 7 years.
Canine Oscar was deployed in 2017 in the spring as a dual certified canine, which is a drug detection canine and an apprehension for humans. So in our time together, we deployed him 716 times. Out of that deployments, that's SWAT deployments, traffic stops, alarms, burglaries, and other high-risk things, including also in our jail for CO protection and also detection for drugs in there. Obviously, because of our area, our drugs are a lot of our problems in our area. So out of that 716, 492 traffic stops were conducted with him. Out of those 492, obviously he didn't alert on all of those vehicles, but out of that 492, 250 drug fines were found. He's been instrumental in a lot of drug cases that had started because of him. Has been a very good dog. I would have brought him today, but he just had a surgery on Tuesday, so he couldn't come in. I want to say thank you to the community. Our foundation pays for a lot of our equipment and training. So without the community's donations, we would not have all that. So that is appreciated. And also the shift that I worked on. There's some case law that requires us to work as a team. So Oscar's achievements are not just his alone. They're also from the people that I worked with. So I was very fortunate to be with a good crew who gave me a lot of work. So hopefully that will continue. So Oscar retired on the 28th of last month. I'm currently going back to school with a new canine and will be running the next one.
Good. Wonderful.
Yes. Yep. He sleeps with my wife now.
Sounds like you got bumped.
Yep.
Oscar and Dennis, accepting this for Oscar with great honor and recognition for your loyal and dedicated service to the citizens of Sawyer County. Thanks to both of you for the last 7 years. And Dennis does have a new canine. He's still on patrol as a canine handler with this new canine. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right. That concludes our appointments recognition, Mr. Alvarado, correct? All right. Moving on then to number 9, economic development. Chair report, Mr. Duffy. Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are only weeks away from the 50th anniversary of the American Brookbiner. So tonight we've asked the executive director of the race, Mr. Ben Pop, to give us an update of their plans, snow problems, etc. So Ben, welcome to the meeting. You want to step to the mic and give us the lowdown? Sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We appreciate you coming, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Supervisors. Too much talking today, I guess. A couple things I just wanted to share with you all. Many of the same things on your mind are on ours, obviously, lack of snow. The positive side is, I think, a couple things. One, we've had 6 events so far this year, all of which have continued to happen through a variety of either on foot running or obviously some snow that we've made up at Telmark. One of the things that I saw this the other day, I think was really important. When we look at room tax collected, and I compared it to 4 different counties, there's a huge dip in the winters, except interestingly enough, in Sawyer County, February is as big as June and July. And I think that's something that we don't take lightly as part of the Birkebeiner. We believe we're a big part of that. And so know that we will do everything we can to ensure the Berkey happens in 2024. It's a big year, obviously, because of the 50th. We have a record 15,000 skiers coming. The largest before ever was 11,200. So it's a huge amount of people wanting to come. And we know that the snow is a bit of an issue now. The upside is super cold. We were on Lake Hayward today. If we had to, we could cross Lake Hayward by Sunday. Pretty certain of that because there's so little snow on it. It's freezing quite quickly. So problem number 1, we're feeling better about. Problem number 2 is one that Mother Nature is going to have to fix. We actually groomed the Berkey Trail from Double O to Mosquito Brook about 4 days ago. And it's not perfect, but it's somewhat skiable. So we're hopeful that with about another 8 to 12 inches of snow, we'd be all right. Considering no rain, hopefully, of course. Couple more events are going to be happening. Wisconsin State Meet, the Ski to Ski, the Berkey Tours, some other events. So we know that we're getting most of these people that we communicate with regularly are still interested in coming. They're going to be here. Interestingly enough, I was dropping some things off at Quick Trip the other day. And this woman, I had a Berkey hat on and she said, "Why are all these skiers still coming? There's no snow." You know, and thankfully we do have 4 kilometers of snow. And so we know it's still bringing people to the area. So at a minimum, it's not perfect, but we're hopeful. Couple things that are really important dates that we hope you will all be there. Tony was really big in opening ceremonies. So downtown on Wednesday of Berkey week, we're going to have a reenactment of an opening ceremony. Everybody's invited and we hope you can make it because the idea of really celebrating 50 years ago when this all started, 35 skiers, and now there's going to be upwards of, we estimate 40,000 people with 15,000 skiers and 25,000 spectators. So Wednesday night is the opening ceremony. And then, of course, it rolls into the giant ski and all the youth programs on Friday, the Quarterlope at Saturday, Saturday Berkey, and then Sunday, we kick them all back out and hit the road. Happy to take any questions. Other than, like I said, keep snow dancing. We're just from a logistic standpoint, most of our installations happen starting the Saturday before the Berkey. So if we do have to make certain concessions and we have to use a different course or we can't get across the lake or something like that, we will be able to wait as late as February that 17th, I think, before we have to make any decisions about we can't do this, we can do this. So I know that Christy and the group has easily upwards of 7 or 8 plans based on whatever Mother Nature sends us. And our goal is to get upwards of 40,000 people here come the end of February. So just an aside too, some of the best skiers in the world will be here. There's a World Cup happening in Minneapolis the weekend before, and well over half of that group will be here to race. So Jessie Diggins, you may or may not have heard of her. She won the Cortaloppet as a 14 and 15-year-old back in, well, when she's 32. So whatever that was backwards, is now the best skier in the world. And she's an American, and she'll be here, which is really cool. Because again, she won the race, the Cortaloppet, back when she was 16. Along with some of the best international skiers in the world. So we're excited about that group that will be here. And certainly if you have questions, let me know, and know that we'll do everything we can.
What, can you cover the magnitude of the snowmaking? How many guns have you got? How many wells are you drawing? How much water do you use?
Well, right now we're actually using a lot of the old snowmaking guns that Tony Wise had put in, or the wells. And we're actually, at this point in time, we're running about 450 gallons a minute through 5 snowmaking machines. We've made about, I was there yesterday, so we have a pile of snow that is at this point 35 feet high by 30 feet wide by about 200 feet long. And so the plan is we'll let it sit now. And if we start to get some natural snow, we know the places on the Berkey Trail that are the most susceptible, that will start to move it to those places as we need. And then worst case scenario, we'll spread it out into some sort of continuous loop to make sure that, as we said, I mean, unless it's 70 and raining, come Berkey week, we'll do something to say 50th anniversary of the Berkey's going to happen. So that's what's happening at this point.
Ben, are you going to start a pile of snow in town here somewhere for me?
Yeah, so actually Christy met with John McHugh the other day, and evidently there's some access to be able to do some snowmaking, that we could actually do something down Main Street, especially for like the youth kids, Barna Berkey, Junior Berkey, Barca Berkey, that kind of stuff. Because I think obviously the downtown feel of being in that is sort of the real key.
Right.
So yeah, Christy and John have been working on some options there.
Plus, you think the bridge will still go up over 63 or?
Well, I mean, that will be able to come down to this, if we think we can get into downtown, absolutely, then for sure it will. Because that's kind of the highlight of the whole deal. So.
Right.
What's that?
Where does it end?
The Berkey would end right now in downtown Hayward, in front of your office. Exactly. That's the goal. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of extra things as part of the 50th that, I mean, sort of a nod to the past. Ice sculptures that Tony had. So they won't be as big as Tony's, but small ice sculptures. There'll be a flyover. We're working with the National Guard, so that'll be pretty cool, I think, to have the significance of have a flyover as part of the start. Like I said, the opening ceremonies. So definitely the schedule, the official schedule will be coming out in the next week or so. And yeah, ideally, if all works well, we'll be finishing right over there. So.
And we still have one skier that's done every race?
There's one man that's done every race. Ernie St. Germain will be skiing his 50th this year. So he's started all 50. He said he was only going to do 50. When he started, he said, my goal was to do 50. And I said, well, you've done every one. I mean, you're not going to stop. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah.
Okay, anything else for Ben? Andy?
I know that the invite was to talk about the 50th, and it sounds like a lot of nods to the past, but looking to the future, you got a lot of other things going on. Do you want to just summarize like the village and some other things that are?
I mean, of course, a huge variety from, we just installed a new building at Wheeler about 10 months ago. And so we're now able to store all of our buckets of bananas and goo, but also a groomer down here. So we're able to actually groom the southern end of the trail quite more frequently. So we just finished that. And then obviously what we're doing at Telmark, which is everything from additional snowmaking. There's a Nordic center similar to what's at 00 there as well, which has allowed us to continue to have these races when no snow is going on. So yeah, it keeps us busy.
Yeah, well, thank you for all the great effort. Anybody else for Ben?
And that, I don't know if you have, when the next board meeting is in February, but certainly if there's one before the Berkey, happy to come back and give you the latest update on where we are. I don't,
That'd
and
be
that's not Berkey week, is it? I'm not actually sure when it is, but
Usually
if it's that week before Berkey.
before, it might be before. We'll
15th.
let you know.
So yeah,
Mr.
but let me know if that works out. I'd happy to come back on the 15th and certainly know far more then and do your snow dances between now and then. And we need it.
All right. Thank you,
No,
Mr. Pop.
yeah, you bet.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
update.
Thanks, Ben.
Appreciate all you do, Ben. All right, Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a short report from our January 8th meeting. The Haywood Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau gave us a written report on their marketing results for the year. Their traffic survey on their websites showed 98,000 plus total users for the year. The top states were Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Texas, and Iowa. The Northwest Regional Planning told us the next hazardous waste collection will be in September. And one of their staff members now is working solely on grant funds to assist in milfoil management. Economic Development gave us their monthly report. Their annual meeting was held in December. The sponsorship letters were mailed out, including accomplishments of the group. And they've applied for a number of grants for local projects. We had a verbal update from both libraries. They're both working into additional adult programs for the winter. We heard also on the motorized trail report, all ATV trails are now open and lakes are safe. They still need snow also. Then of course we had a Berkey report, but you've all just heard the report. There's no report on broadband this month. And we had an LCO update on their medical center. The Historical Society report, the logs now have arrived at the museum and loaded on their sled. And they now have gone into their winter hours, which is Thursday from 10 to 2. Their next quarterly meeting is January 25th at the library. And their speaker is Patricia Lacey, who's a local historian on Sawyer and Haywood. And that, Mr. Chairman, completes my short report of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Duffy, and we appreciate you inviting Mr. Pop. Thanks for that update. All right, moving on, number 10, Zoning Committee Chair Report. Mr. Buckholz, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The zoning committee will hold its monthly public hearing tomorrow at 8:30. At the last month's meeting, the committee heard 2 rezone cases, which will be discussed as the next agenda item. The committee continues to work through an ordinance amendment focusing around multi-dwelling development. The committee will hold a special public hearing on Wednesday, February 7th at 10 a.m. in this room right here for a dam failure analysis for the Fish Trap Lake Dam. If approved, the dam failure analysis would come to the county board for potential approval in February. The zoning department again has surpassed issued land use permits from previous year. This is now marks the largest number of permits issued over the last 16 years. So if there's no other questions, I will turn it over to Mr. Kozlowski.
Okay, Jay.
Yes, thank you.
got
We
two
have,
action items, sir.
yeah, we have 2 rezone requests tonight. First one is rezone number 23-005. This is the Hathaway Lodge LLC for the Stephen Arnold Friendship Trust located in the town of Edgewater. It is 18.9 total acres, zone forestry 1. 3.47 of those acres are part of a shoreline wetland overlay district. The purpose of the request is to rezone 4.7 acres of forestry 1, which is the underlaying zone district, to residential recreational 1. With the proposed rezone to residential recreational 1, it would then be to divide that parcel into 3 additional lakeshore lots. The remaining 14.2 acres would remain forestry 1. With that describable, the request within the forestry zone district would require a 5-acre minimum. So that is why they're requesting to rezone it to residential recreational 1. With the 3 lakeshore lots, they would each be approximately 133 feet at right angle width along the water's edge of Little Sisebagama Lake. The town of Edgewater comprehensive plan has 2 different versions of the future land use maps. One version shows this as shoreline, the other or shoreline residential. As defined by the town comprehensive plan, still references the old lake classification system, which is no longer in effect. These lake classifications were to protect environmentally sensitive bodies of water. As part of the other comprehensive map, they show as a no buffer future land use, which shows it as forestry residential. With the no buffer map, the shoreline protection area is removed and the town is classified as the forestry residential, would have a recommendation for one dwelling per 20,000 square feet of land area with suitable zone districts of R1, RR1, and RR2. The site conditions of this location would need additional grading permits to ensure erosion control, as that some of the slopes would be in excess of 40%. This was the second rezone request for this property in the last 2 years. The previous request was to rezone the entire 18.9 acres of Forestry 1 to residential recreational 1, and that failed at the county board by a supermajority vote in that 50% of the adjacent property owners filed a petition to protest. There were 11 additional notification letters sent out to property owners within 300 feet. All 11 were returned, all with objections. The town of Edgewater had denied the rezone request on December 12th of 2023 as a vote of 2-1. At the Sawyer County Zoning Committee public hearing, it was recommended for denial as a vote of 4-1, with the findings of facts that it would be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands, and shorelands. It would create an air quality, water supply, or pollution problem, and it would create topographical problems such as runoff, drainage, and erosion. As part of the resolution, again, the recommendation from zoning committee is as a denial. This county board can accept that denial. Thus, you would not sign the resolution and the rezone would not be processed. Or the county board, while on rare occasions, can overturn the recommendation of the zoning committee.
And, excuse me, and Jay, the town of Edgewater denied this rezone request?
They had also made the
Correct.
recommendation for denial, yes.
Okay, Mr. Buckholz.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to deny the rezone number 23-005.
Mr. Howick.
I'll make a second on that.
Okay, motion by Mr. Buckholz, second by Mr. Howick to deny the rezone request, which is consistent with the town board and the zoning committee, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes. Is that Ms. Hessel?
It is, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Hessel.
On his findings and facts, Jay, should not be removed from there, the word not?
Yeah, you're correct. It would be detrimental. It would create an air quality supply. It would create topographic problems, correct? Thank you, Ms. Hessel.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor with an electronic vote by Mr. Buckholz, second by Mr. Hellwig to deny the rezone request. Voting is open. Motion is to deny.
Ms. Hessel, would you cast your vote?
You just need me to say it out loud, is that correct?
Yes, since I have to cast it on the system.
Yes, for the denial.
Hers is not clicking. There it goes, there it goes. Mr. Weaver,
Yes.
changed batteries on some of them, but I didn't get batteries on all of them. There we go.
Got it.
Mr. Rusk,
Yes.
taking several.
Oh, I haven't voted yet?
And Mr. Hellwig, yours did not take, nor
Or
did
did I?
Ron Buckholz. Tom Duffy, could you try yours again? Mr. Duffy's hasn't. There we go. Okay, we have the motion to deny passed 14-1.
All right, thank you. Motion carries then. All right, Jay, letter C, sir.
Yes, rezone number 23-013, owner Mark Lewis for Cedar Falls Building Systems, Inc. This is in the town of Hayward, tax ID 11471. Property is zoned commercial 1. It is 5.03 total acres. The site address is 13700 County Highway B. This is immediately adjacent to the LCO Casino. The request is to rezone the 5.03 acres from commercial 1 to industrial 1. As per the applicant's statement, this would be for the purposes of manufacturing park model trailers and golf cart repair in an existing building located on the property.
As part of that request to Industrial 1, Industrial 1 Zone District is the only zone district that mentions any type of manufacturing. So that was the only zone district that type of use could occur in. With the attached maps again included in my staff report, this is immediately adjacent from the LCO Casino to the north of it. The town of Hayward, as part of their comprehensive plan, shows this area as rural transition. As defined by the comprehensive plan, it is to identify lands in proximity to developed areas and to preserve mainly forestry and open spaces until such use or such time as a more intense development may be appropriate. Areas within the RT classification should be for new development and shall be limited to the accordance with the town policies, including the highway corridor district. The anticipated districts within RT future land use do not include commercial one, but the town does not require an amendment to their future land use map if they deem it for a more appropriate or intensive development. There are no other industrial zone districts within this immediate vicinity. This may be viewed as spot zoning, but spot zoning is not necessarily illegal because such zoning is not necessarily inconsistent with the purposes for which zoning ordinances can be passed, but it should only be indulged when it is to benefit the public good. This area does contain a considerable amount of commercial development and commercial businesses. The anticipated use would be more so of a light industrial commercial use, but the zoning ordinance does not have that type of zone district listed. Again, any type of manufacturing would only be allowed within an industrial zone district. The town of Hayward kind of came up with a little bit of a crafty way to ensure that the industrial use would be specifically for this proposed park model manufacturing. And they have made a condition as far as the town approval that they would have the current owner sign a deed restriction in which, again, the property would only be used for that certain type of uses, that manufacturing of park model trailers. I have received a copy of that deed restriction and it is ready for recording with potential approval of the rezone ratification tonight. There were 4 additional notification letters sent out to property owners within 300 feet. None were returned. The town of Hayward did approve the rezone request of a vote of 2-0 with their requirement that covenants is recorded. Now, again, as a condition for approval, this county board and zoning committee cannot set conditions on the rezone. But there is a pretty good showing of faith with the current owner that he is going to be recording that deed restriction. Zoning committee public hearing on December 15th. It was recommended for approval of a vote of 5-0.
Okay, thank you, Jay. At this time, then I would entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Buckles. Oh, Ms. Hassel, go ahead.
That's okay. Ron was ahead of me. He's there.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the rezone number 23-013, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Hassel.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Ms. Hassel to approve the rezone 23-013. This is another electronic vote, correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
All right.
Mr. Weaver, please.
Yes.
Mr. Rusk,
Yes.
Ms. Hessel.
Yes.
We have all votes cast successfully and the vote is now closed. It passes 15-0.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
And that ends my report, Mr.
Anything further, Chairman, you're good? All right, moving on then to number 11. Public Safety Committee Chair Report. Mr. Buckholz.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee meeting met on December 7th. Circuit Court Judge's report, Judge Yackel advised the Branch 2 Judicial Assistant is back to work. He and Judge Isham have been meeting with the Recovery Court team and should be operating at full speed within both judicial seats. Courthouse remodel, I'll leave up to Mr. Alvarado. Written report was provided listing the clerk of court. Trial cases filed on October 24th through the 28th was included. 3 jury trials are scheduled during the month of December. Mrs. Kelsey advised that the financial clerk has been able to begin collections operations. A sheriff's department communication center, a written report was provided and reviewed by Lieutenant Rapinski, recognized the retirement of Lynette Poppy from dispatch. December 2nd, there was an additional fatal car crash. Deflection training began that day, or today, or the time of the meeting. Patrol report, Lieutenant Waller, an average population and the daily jail population remains lower than the past year. 2 are currently on monitoring and 1 is on human privileges. The jail report, current unemployment is 84% and the total population was 62. There are currently 2 individuals. That's going to be read twice, so that's monitoring and 1 working on Huber. The communication specialist report, we have none. And code enforcement specialist, the 2024 dog licensing process has opened. A written report was provided and reviewed by Lieutenant Rapinski. A disaster recovery training was hosted and had attendees from across the state. Communication Center report, a written report was provided and reviewed by Lieutenant Rapinski. 2 new hires are in training with the DMA 2 PSAP grant in the amount of $422,559.91 was received. Child support department, the total current support due is $130,851.15. Total support collected was $95,275.50. That ends my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Buckholz. If there's no further questions for public safety, then we'll move on to Public Works. Public Works Committee Chair Report, Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The maintenance department is busy keeping the building clean. They are short-staffed. They have some people off work presently, and I think they do a wonderful job. Take care of things. The snow hasn't been too bad. The highway department, the commissioner gave us a report. We had discussion on holiday hours. We had discussion on people taking vehicles out of the county. And we're trying to stay abreast of, in the future, a roundabout over by the casino and the courthouse remodel. We're looking at having a dedication ribbon cutting time set up sometime in the month of May. And out at the airport, they're doing a good job. They're starting to look at the master plan. The master plan meeting is going to be March 6th. And when we had that meeting, I think we probably win because we had 27 people in the audience. That concludes my report.
Wonderful. Okay, anything else for Public Works? If not, thank you, Mr. Kinsley. All right, moving on, number 13 then, Land, Water, Forest Resource Committee Chair Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Peters.
On January 10th, 2024, the Land, Water, and Forest Resources Committee met. We had a written report from Register of Deeds. 2023 ended with the county share of transfer fees being roughly $60,000 over budgeted amount. Register of Deeds fees were about $4,200 over revenue estimates. Under land records, surveyor's report, there were 6 certified survey maps, and they're continuing with detailed surveying activities. The real property lister report, all tax bills, as I think everybody in this room knows, have been printed and delivered. They're working with the assessors as we're moving into a new area. Sawyer County Forestry Department, recreational trails. At the time, lakes were not completely frozen. I think things have tightened up since that particular meeting. We're working with LCO to add ATV trails to the alliance, to their alliance maintenance contract. County Forestry, a written report was provided by Mr. Peterson. There's a high value of timber sales, uncut and unfiled. But we had a lot of activity last year. 2023 income was over budget by about $800,000. We also have a couple of action items coming up after I complete my report on the county forestry annual work plan. That's not, and also on the minutes of the annual partnership meeting, and both of these things need board approval for to be used by the forestry department. DNR Forestry is working on harder to access forest areas. And we also have a good amount of work being completed on the carbon tax credit project. Zoning and Conservation Department report focused primarily on the municipal dam grant that will be coming up next month, probably, for the Fish Trap Lake Dam proposal. And aquatic invasive species grant was accepted and approved by DNR. And there'll be some work going on in the future with regard to Fish Trap Dam. That completes my report, sir.
Okay. Mr. Peters, do we have money set aside for the Fish Trap Dam repair? Andy might be able to help with this.
There are some funds available, but that's we're waiting for this will be mostly with the grant.
Okay, Andy?
Yeah, we've been planning for it in the CIP process. So there is a dam grant like we just utilized for the other dam rebuild that would fund 50% of the project. Is there a cap on that, Jay?
Yeah, so they actually changed the dam grants a little bit. Now it's 50% for the first million and 25% for the next million after that. So it actually is a bump in the grant as the previous one we had.
Right. Thank you. So with that project, we actually used money out of the Resource Development Fund to match the grant. That was after we had refunded, or actually after we had funded the Resource Development Fund. So that fund has been emptied out. So either we need to do it in the CIP, but as part of what we're working on with the Finance Committee, we're gonna have a recommendation next month to use some of the revenue that was taken in 2023, like through the county forest, to replenish the Resource Development Fund. So we'll have matching funds ready for the Fish Trap Dam project to match the grant.
Perfect, thank you. All right, your action items, Mr. Peters, letter B. 2024 annual work plan.
Yes, the committee accepted and approved the work plan, and we bring that to the board for approval.
Okay,
I move that we accept that.
you move, Chair?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Peters, Mr. Hellwig.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Hellwig to approve the Sawyer County Forestry work plan, 2024 work plan. Okay, is there any further discussion? Anybody online have any discussion with the work plan, forestry work plan?
Nope.
Oh, yeah. Greg, do you care to comment at all before we vote? Okay. Well, looks like a lot of work goes into this, and looks like we're headed to another surplus in forestry, 1.8 million. Okay. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Peters, letter C.
Yes, moving on to the 2023 partnership meeting. We have the minutes of that annual partnership meeting that also need approval for tonight. And I move approval of those minutes.
Okay, Thank you, Mr. Peters. Motion by Mr. Peters. Second by Mr. Buckholz to approve the meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Anybody online? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Does that conclude, sir, your report?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Peters. Thank you, Greg. Number 14 then. Health and Human Services Chair Report. And Mr. Schleter, you want Ms. Wilson to give that today? Ms. Wilson?
Yes, Mr. Schleter asked me to give the report for tonight. Our meeting was held on January 9th. We had a short presentation by Dr. Malcolm on the daycare facilities that were closed. 3 children were sent to the hospital but have recovered. They have fewer cases of RSV, and he said only 1 was reported on that day. So he was very hopeful that mini epidemic is now taken care of. The Senior Resource Center is looking for cooks in the Stone Lake Center. During the Medicare open enrollment, our elder benefit specialist assisted 22 recipients. Medicare Advantage Plan open enrollment opens up in the first quarter of the year, so it's anticipated they will see similar requests for assistance. The Sawyer County was approved to continue to receive funding for coordinated service teams. Coordinated service teams are teams that are involved in multiple systems of care, mental health, youth, justice, CPS, and their families. We currently have 6 individuals in transition, which is a community-based residential facility with 1 bed being filled by a non-county resident. There is an 8-bed capacity. In the area of child protective services, there have been significant reductions in out-of-home expenses. In the first quarter of 2023, residential care expenses averaged around $80,000. In the fourth quarter, the costs were reduced by about 50% with the average of $40,000 per month. And this was because children were moved to less restrictive care and to more home-like care, which is better for the children and better for the bottom line. Youth Justice continues to be busy. As of November, they received 76 referrals in 2023. It was noted that in 2024, they will be looking into diversion programming for youth, similar to diversion programming that we have in place for the adults. For economic support in November, there were 1,097 food share cases with 1,985 food share recipients and $286,166 in food share benefits issued. Influenza-like illnesses continue to increase in Wisconsin and is at a high level in all regions of the state. Influenza, RSV, and COVID-19 are all circulating widely, and we have a low percentage of immunizations. A written budget report, performance report was received, and purchase services recap was also provided. The 2023 budget continues to look like it will be on target. And that's my report.
And that is incredible. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Anything for Health and Human Services? Okay. All right, moving on to number 15, Finance Committee Chair Report, Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have election coming for our county clerk, our register of deeds, and county treasurer, and they're all set at 35 hours. We moved that up to 40 hours, and it'll be on the agenda for next month for setting the wages. Sales tax continues to go up. The budget performance reports look good at the end of the year. And we had a resolution, which we have also on here, that has to be approved. And we looked at the ambulance billing system, and we seem to be taking in more money now than we have done in the past. So good paperwork trail, I guess. Which leads us to letter B.
Okay. Before we go to that, Mr. Chairman and Andy, what is the plan for the surplus? Right, we had a increase in sales tax, we had an increase in forestry, and we had a lot of interest on our investments.
Yeah, like I had mentioned with the Resource Development Fund, we talked about that a little bit at finance. The finance director and I are anticipating bringing back some recommendations to the committee next month. When we have excess revenues, as long as the expenses are where they are expected to be with the budget, there was essentially a surplus that would go into the general fund. Don't hold me to this, but our recommendations are going to fall on the lines of replenishing the Resource Development Fund, like I mentioned for the dam grant. Our highway department, while they're staying within budget, they have some structural issues with their fund balance and cash flow. So we're going to recommend upping the fund balance they carry at the highway department as two items that we would recommend. Two other things that we'll talk about that really we just have to do, they're not something that requires board action, is the sales tax. We take in more than we've budgeted. So we want to set aside or designate that amount within the general fund as a sales tax fund, because sales tax, like I've mentioned, is essentially a market-based revenue for the county. It's going to go up and down, or not go up as much as we have been. And like Mr. Pop said, you can watch room tax in the winter hold steady and go up in February. Well, right now we don't have any snow, so there's you're not hearing the braps around the county with the snowmobilers. So we anticipate we'll see sales tax come down. So we want to make sure if we have an overage, maybe next year it goes down, we have some cushion there so we don't plan on revenue that's not there. Similar with the ambulance, that's it's an emergency services levy. It's outside the levy cap. So we need to segregate those funds if we have any excess dollars there so we can offset next year's budget for the ambulance.
Is there a Health and Human Services fund balance that we need to replenish?
We do not, actually. We're not. We budgeted last year to transfer money to the human services, anticipating potential overage. We're not gonna have to make that transfer. And in 2022, you moved money from the general fund to replenish the fund balance in human services at that time. And they have not tapped into that fund since that time. So that fund balance is there, it stays there, does not need to be replenished.
And as Ms. Wilson stated today, the 2023 Health and Human Services budget is on target.
It's on target. There was even all of our out of county placements is really where it gets expensive. Staff, it's been good conditions. Staff is doing a great job of managing those cases and preventing any high cost placements from extending out longer than they need to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we got a resolution. Do you want this, or Mr. Kinsley, or who wants to explain this?
I'll take it.
Okay.
So you might be aware that we serve as a conduit for the Senior Resource Center. And we also fund them for the Meals on Wheels and the Congregate Meal Program. In, I think, 2022, the county appropriated ARPA dollars to help them buy a bus for their transportation. We also serve as the conduit then for the 8521 grants that go to help them operate their transportation services. It really was because of the county funding a part of the bus. They didn't need to use the grant for the bus. So that created a surplus. It's about $30,000. And because this is a grant funded program, the DOT statutes say that they need to have a trust fund set up to hold those dollars so that they are only used for the transportation services of the Senior Resource Center. So this resolution establishes that trust fund where those dollars are held and then used out of there for eligible grant expenses.
Okay, so at
Chair.
this time, yes, is that Ms.
Yeah.
Hessel?
It is. I had my hand up. I just wanted to make a motion to approve resolution 85-21.
Okay, I got a motion by Ms. Hessel,
A second.
second by Mr. Righeimer to approve the resolution to establish a trust fund to deposit unexpended specialized transportation grant funds. Is there any further discussion? Anyone online? Nope. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Mr. Kinsley, anything else for finance? No, thank you, sir. All right, number 16, County Administrators Report. Andy?
Thank you. So courthouse renovation, not really any changes from last month. We are still winding it down. The floors were redone out here in the entryway, just this last weekend. They are still working on the HVAC, but we're pretty close. Pretty sure they've identified the reason that we've been having heating, cooling issues and an imbalance in pressure. And that work should be completed next week. Essentially, it's some fans need to be put on timers so they run in the evenings, not during the day. And then upcoming yet is the completion of the AV. You can see some of the equipment in the back corner that still needs to be hooked up, and then everything will be fully operational and we can wind out that project. Personnel, we're recruiting for the same positions. There was, I think, as most people know from the committee discussion, two deputies did resign. So they will be moving on in the next few weeks. We had previously recruited for a deputy position that was vacated for an individual that relocated outside the area. During that recruitment, we had an eligibility list that we were able to pull people off in order to put them into FTO, into training now for the additional positions that would be vacated. So we'll end up starting to recruit now for part-time people to fill in and backfill those spots that are we're moving people up in. Things we talked about last month, like the PTO proposal, that's been pushed to the February committee meetings. HR is continuing to work on a couple of significant personnel matters and investigations that we're winding out. And then I did want to give a little more time to talk about a grievance that was filed by the Sawyer County Deputy Sheriff's Association. So some of the board, the administrative committee, received an email from McGillis Weimer, which is a law firm that represents the Sawyer County Deputy Sheriff's Association. Essentially, you would refer to them as the union, just as a reference. Background on that, Deputy Ryan Schick's employment with the sheriff's office was terminated for multiple policy violations. McGillis Weimer, the law firm representing the Deputy Sheriff's Association, sent a letter informing the county that the termination was being grieved and that the relief sought was to have Ryan Schick reinstated as a deputy sheriff. That grievance was denied. So on January 9th, 2024, McGillis Weimer sent a letter to the administration committee and the sheriff's office informing them that the Sawyer County Deputy Sheriff's Association was appealing the denial of the grievance and requesting a meeting with the administration committee. So now we're in the process of scheduling that hearing, and we'll keep the committee and board updated as this moves forward. I want to note that the administration committee will be hearing the grievance. So at this point, we will not be providing any more details on the termination to ensure a fair hearing for all parties involved. So I wanted to just give a little background, if you might hear about that. This is not a position generally it's been years apparently since grievance has gone this far at the county. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Training, we're working on countywide employee training day. We've set that as March 6th. It'll be a full day, probably 2 half days for all employees to be able to participate. We're going to already have worked on a couple sessions. The main one being it's been a while since we've done any active shooter or courthouse safety training here. And with the new facility all being set up, it changes things a little bit. So we want to make sure we get everything updated with that. So because we're doing that training, right now we're working on updating and making sure we have all of our safety documents and plans ready to be presented. We have a Deputy Jensen out of the Sheriff's Department that does active shooter training for schools and businesses throughout the area. So we have a great internal asset. We had a good first meeting to get that planned. We will be inviting the board to attend the training day for any sessions you want to take in as well. Budget, we've kind of covered that, where we are ending up for 23 and what we might be recommending to the Finance Committee in February. Corp Council work, we still right now we have got a lot of ordinance development in the works, so we're leaning on our council for helping us with a bunch of that. Those are all listed there, as well as the typical work and open records requests, that type of thing. Mr. Buckholz covered pretty much everything the Criminal Justice Council is working on. Airport Master Plan, yes, there's been some inquiries, concerns, questions about the process and what's happening. Like Mr. Kinsley said, and this is a change for anybody that heard prior information. The public information workshop where the public will be able to attend and see the work and provide input will be on Wednesday, March 6th. We did move it a day forward or a day later to accommodate some people that could not make it. And then also there'll be a meeting of the advisory group that day as well. Times will come out shortly for those. And then we did ask the consultants to add a couple people to their advisory group. So we have a representative from the town of Hayward and a neighbor who they will be including to address some of the concerns that have been raised. Economic development, Mr. Duffy already covered the new director. They have applied. We provided letters of support for the Thrive grant the state is offering for new initiatives. And then the other thing that's been discussed this week with some other counties in the economic development world is the no snow is impacting all northern Wisconsin counties. And so if this persists, there's some worry about some businesses being able to make it through the winter. So there are some efforts, or at least some attention being paid to that. Broadband, we have not heard anything on the last round of applications. The BEAD funds, which are going to be available this year, probably middle of the year. There is a challenge process that's opening up any day now. So this will allow local governments, broadband providers, nonprofits to review the maps. The maps will show where the BEAD dollars can be used. And so they could be challenged if you see areas that are already serviced that should not be eligible for funding. Mr. Peters and I have talked about this, and we've gone through the steps to make any challenges if we need be. And with the Development Corporation, there's a broadband committee we'll be involving to take a look at the maps when they're ready. In relation to LCO, just this last week, the Joint Finance Committee has okayed the release of funds to county and towns to address the impact of the LCO versus Evers decision. That was the appeals court decision, which essentially said that any property within the reservation boundaries that was taxable at one point but is now returned to tribal ownership is no longer taxable. And so that created a tax a shortfall for towns in the county. So in the last state budget, there was money set aside that now Joint Finances has released. It's like $3 million and some change. A lot of it's going to go to Ashland County because they have one township that is almost wholly within the reservation boundaries. Within Sawyer County, we expect to get just under $100,000 to replace the lost revenue at the county level. And the townships that are involved, are right around the $3,000 range. I think there's 4 of them that'll be getting some of that money here any day now. And I think the other thing from the public safety report is in regards to the public safety radio system, we had John Kruk was our communications specialist. That contract ended at the end of last year. We had put out an RFP through the sheriff's department to find a new vendor or look at options for a vendor. And now we've gone through that and selected GenCom, who will be moving forward with as our communications provider. They'll be responsible for maintaining our current system and then helping us navigate any improvements we want to make going forward. Eau Claire? I think that'll be good. They work with a number of our neighboring counties.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Madam Clerk, did you have anything to add regarding correspondence, reports, conferences? Nothing?
Nope.
Mr. Howick?
I'm curious, how come the out-of-county vehicle policy was not on the agenda? That
Mr.
was
Alvarado?
discussed in different committees and approved.
Yeah, it's not on there at the finance and admin meetings. They asked for some additional financial background on the issue to come back to the February meeting.
Postpone, sir.
Postpone.
Okay, so with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone online.